Welcome back, everybody. Okay, let's pause that for a second. In this video, and this is about harmony and about melodies and about eliciting different kinds of emotions or representing different kinds of emotions. And before we go on, I want to say this is all subjective. However, there have been some interesting studies, one of which I include in my book, The Way of Music, Creating Sound Connections in Music Therapy, where the people who did the study looked at the effects of certain composed music that had the intention of eliciting certain emotional responses, and they looked at that with group study subjects, and they found that there was some predictability with regard to musical characteristics, and we'll talk about those in a second, and the way people interpreted the music. So there are correlations. It's not a science, it's not exact. It doesn't mean if you do this, this result is going to happen. But there are certainly correlations, and we're going to talk about a couple of those today in this video. And this is just two examples out of many. The first example, which you just heard, I'm calling uplifting. You could use the term happy, perhaps, or whatever, heroic, happy, uplifting, elated, energizing. So let's talk about what kind of musical characteristics we're talking about. When I talk about musical characteristics, I'm talking about the elements of music: rhythm, harmony, melody, form, dynamics, ornamentation, punctuation, all those elements of music and how we're using them. What are the, if you will, the shapes that we're using, or the intervals, the treatment, the rhythms, all that stuff together produces the effect of the music, right? Produces the music characteristics. If we were going to analyze it, which we are a little, that's what we're talking about. So in this example, I'm going to point to a couple main characteristics, and then we'll talk about how we're playing, how we're creating the melody. So this is all background, right? This is in a major key, happens to be A major. I'm using an F-sharp flute. A major, I'm playing two chords. I'm playing the root, so in this major key, relative major to the F-sharp flute, it's A major, and then D major, the fourth. It's pretty simple. It goes back and forth between those two chords, the 1 and the 4. Both chords are major chords, all right? And there's some common notes that are shared between those chords. So it's a fairly, I don't want to use the word benign necessarily, but it's a fairly gentle chord progression, not a lot of difference between the chords even. So I would put it in the, mildly major category. So it is major, it goes back and forth. We've got a rolling rhythm, kind of a 12/8 feel or 6/8 feel. We've got clear, forward motion in the rhythm. And it's at a quicker tempo. What is the tempo? Let me see. According to this, it's 100 BPM. So dot, 3, 4. So kind of brisk, if you were going to walk to that, it would be a pretty upbeat walking tempo, all right? So in the melody, what I'm doing, and this is according to the study that, and if I can find a link to it, I'll put it in this post. But it's in my book, and what they found in the study is that to elicit, what we could call happiness, or what I'm calling uplifting music, we literally move up. We have upward shaped melodies, and the characteristic is that they usually will include leaps of fourths and fifths. And what is that? That's an interval, right, where we're skipping notes in the scale, and we're going from, let's say, the root, and I hope this isn't too loud, but the root, and we're going straight up to, in some cases, a fifth or a fourth. So that's a fourth or a fifth. And we've got several of those kinds of intervals on our flute where we can jump, from one note up to another note. Now, of course, that's not all we're doing, but that is kind of a characteristic. And if you think about, music in movies, movie music, bum, bum, we hear that kind of interval a lot in these kind of heroic, uplifting anthems, all right? So that's one thing that's happening. Another thing that's happening is we're staying in the major key. We're not using a lot of high tension notes. We're really staying in the key, not creating a lot of dissonance. All right, so I'm going to play a little bit more. You can play along. I'll leave some spaces if you're ready to play along. I'm also going to try my best to either include at the time of publication or later a play-along track so you can just practice. But you can make your own tracks or look for tracks online. All right, let's play along with those things in mind, and I'll give you some examples. All right. Okay, awesome. So super fun, simple, and I think uplifting. And you can experiment with that, and you can change the way you play and see if maybe make a recording and play it for people and see what they think. Do your own experiment. All right, we're going to move on. The next example, which is this. Is also using an F sharp flute, and now this one is in the minor key. So we're using the chords F sharp minor and B minor, the fourth. So we're still playing the one chord and the four chord, but we're doing it now in a minor key. And I wanted to do these examples in a similar way, just two chords, the one chord and the four chord. This one is in a 4/4 meter and a duple meter, but it's using a lot of the same instrumentation, similar sounds, similar percussion. So it's not super different. So because we want to focus on the harmony and the melody, and what are we doing in this one? So this one, I'm just calling melancholy. You could maybe get to sadness, or maybe not anger, not on this one, but melancholy, kind of just not uplifting necessarily. Although this is cultural, so I want to reiterate that these are not absolutes. Music is not prescriptive in as much as there's a definite cause and effect, despite what you might read online or despite what some people might claim. Music is not only culturally different, it's also subjective. So it's also different from person to person. A lot of factors go into this. But that being said, according to this study, if you're in a minor key which we are now, and you're using stepwise motion, and you're using smaller intervals, not fourths and fifths, but maybe whole steps, minor thirds, minor sixths, or whatever combination to come up with a melody that is a little more stepwise and also maybe descending instead of moving up, maybe moving down, you know. And so let's play. I'll play along. You can play along if you want. I'm using my F sharp flute again, and we'll see if we can get into that space. All right, you can use a 6-hole flute or a 5-hole flute. 6-hole is going to give you access to more notes. Okay. All right. Now, what I invite you to do is experiment on your own. To me, yeah, I mean, this groove, it's not that melancholy. Maybe I would slow it down a little, maybe. But here's the thing, you guys, and here's the takeaway. Musical elements, you know, rhythm, harmony, melody, form, all that stuff, they are powerful ingredients. And the way we use them, right, the choices we make, of course, do affect the overall product. And that product has potential. I'm not saying it definitely will, you know, produce different effects in people, because again, it is subjective. However, depending on the culture within which you grow up or you become enculturated within, and depending on your personal preferences, depending on your the history, what you've experienced in terms of being a receiver and a consumer of art and music, and the kinds of things that you've been conditioned to believe, like if you watch scary movies, for example, or whatever. Movie soundtracks are definitely something that I think we are all conditioned to respond to in certain ways. So that's part of our enculturation, our upbringing, and conditioning, right? So depending on all those things, you'll respond, within a predictable range to different musical factors. And the thing is, as a musician, armed with that knowledge, right, or the potential effects, you can make choices that will hopefully, project and communicate the kinds of feeling elements, the kinds of emotional material or qualities that you would like to include in the music that you make, so that you're making an informed, choice, or let's just call it an educated guess as to what kinds of feelings other people might experience as a result of the music you play. Now, why is this important? Well, it may not be important to you, it may not be a factor, but if you're playing music, for example, in service, as a service, maybe you're playing for a celebration, or maybe you're playing for a life celebration, right? Very different things. Birthday celebration, life celebration, not the same kind of celebration. So you want to be, you want to have experience, and you want to have a lot of tools in your toolbox. You want to be able to craft the kind of music that you think would be the most suitable for a certain occasion and a certain purpose. And so I think that's a good enough reason to dig into these a little bit more, dig into this kind of, space where we're talking about emotions and communicating emotions through music. I think it's exciting. What do you guys think? Let me know. You can leave your comments below. If you have any information to add, links or books or videos or whatever you want to add, put that down below. If you have questions for me, of course, please message me rather than leaving a question in the comment area. But whatever you do, I hope you've enjoyed this. And thanks for being a patron. See you guys in another video.